You've seen the poster, you've heard the song, you've watched the scene. Jennifer Beals, sultry and soaked, flipping her head back as a cascade of water rains down in slow motion. It's one of the most iconic shots of the 80s. But what if we told you it wasn't even her? That unforgettable dance sequence that became the heartbeat of Flashdance. It was performed, not by Beals, but by a French dancer named Marine Jahan. And she wasn't alone. A gymnast and even a male breakdancer in a wig also stepped in for Beals. But that's just the beginning of the wild story behind this pop culture juggernaut. From rejected directors to real-life inspirations and a hit soundtrack that knocked Thriller off the charts, Flashdance was a movie that no one believed in until it danced its way into history. Let's rewind to 1983. Hollywood had low hopes for Flashdance. Paramount was so skeptical they offloaded 25% of the film's rights just days before its release. Even director Adrian Lyne thought the script was dumb. He turned the film down not once, not twice, but 3 times. He was a commercials guy, known for Brutus Jeans ads in the UK, and only took the job hoping it'd convince studios to fund his next project, 9.5 weeks. No one, least of all Lyne, expected Flashdance to become a cultural earthquake. The story was loose, some would say barely there. Alex Owens, played by a then-unknown 19-year-old Jennifer Beals, is a Pittsburgh steel mill welder by day and a nightclub dancer by night. She dreams of joining a prestigious ballet academy but lacks formal training. With a bit of help from her rich boss, whom she ends up dating, and a lot of inner fire, she gets her shot. She auditions, dances her heart out, and walks into the future, all set to Flashdance. What a feeling. It sounds like a Cinderella story, but behind the scenes, it was all grit, chaos, and more smoke and mirrors than a Vegas stage. Let's start with Beals. Fresh out of high school and just enrolled at Yale, she only took the part after deferring a semester. She was charming, photogenic, and radiant on screen, but when it came to the movie's trademark dance scenes, they brought in the cavalry. Marine Jahan executed the majority of the choreography. Legendary breakdancer Crazy Legs donned a wig and tights for the backspins. Gymnast Sharon Shapiro launched through the air for the audition's final leap. And yet, none of them were credited. Jahan in particular was devastated to discover her name omitted from the credits. Her response after watching the premiere? The film credited the dog and not me. And while Beals gets flack for not doing the dancing, let's be clear, she never pretended otherwise. In fact, Flashdance is a perfect example of movie magic, style over substance, sure, but revolutionary all the same. The camera never lingers long enough to spot the switch. The lighting, the editing, the music, it all works together to make you believe. Still, the deception was jarring for many fans, especially once the movie blew up. Critics hated it. Roger Ebert infamously placed it on his most hated list, calling it great sound and flash dance signifying nothing. But audiences didn't care. With an $8 million budget, Flashdance raked in over $200 million worldwide. The soundtrack went multi-platinum, and the film stayed in the box office top 10 for 15 weeks. It was the first true MTV-era movie, music video editing, dance-driven storytelling, and high-style over deep substance. And that wasn't by accident. The film was engineered quite literally from a Toronto strip club. Writer Tom Headley based the story loosely on Maureen Martyr, construction worker who danced at night. Paramount paid her a measly $2,300 for the rights to her life. She later sued, pointing out that the movie earned hundreds of millions. The court disagreed. Headley always claimed the character wasn't directly based on Martyr, but Martyr knew better. The Alex character was the perfect blend of contradictions. Working class but aspirational, strong but vulnerable. And Jennifer Beals, despite not doing the dancing, sold it. Her wardrobe too became legendary. That iconic off-the-shoulder sweatshirt, Not designed by a fashion team. Beals had accidentally shrunk it in the dryer and cut out the collar just to get it over her head. Director Adrian Lyne saw it and immediately said, "That's the look." As for the infamous lobster scene, where Alex seductively eats lobster with her bare hands and then gropes Nick under the table, that was all Beals, with a little help. Michael Nouri, who played Nick, told her to just shock me. She did, and audiences were definitely shocked. Speaking of Nouri, the role of Nick nearly went to a whole parade of stars: Gene Simmons, Kevin Costner, even Al Pacino. Kiss's Simmons turned it down to protect his demon persona. Costner reportedly lay in bed with Beals for a chemistry test. He didn't get the part, but at least he got $200 and a great story. And Beals? She beat out nearly every young actress in Hollywood: Demi Moore, Jamie Lee Curtis, Jennifer Grey, Sharon Stone, Michelle Pfeiffer, and more. According to one version of the story, Paramount's male crew members were asked which actress they'd most like to sleep with. Beals won the vote. Other accounts claim studio secretaries chose her as the most relatable. Either way, it was a Hollywood fairy tale casting moment that launched her career. Yet for all the attention, Beals remained grounded. She returned to Yale and earned a degree in American literature. She later refused to appear on Dancing with the Stars, saying, "You could back up a truck of cash to my door and I wouldn't do it. I'm not a dancer." The film also marked the birth of Hollywood power players. Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, the producers, were unknowns before Flashdance. Afterward, they'd go on to helm Top Gun, Beverly Hills Cop, Bad Boys, and essentially define the blockbuster for the next 2 decades. Choreographer Jeffrey Hornaday would later work with Michael Jackson on Captain EO and Disney's Descendants. Giorgio Moroder's synth-heavy soundtrack work became the sound of the 80s, and Joe Esterhazy, the screenwriter, would later write Basic Instinct and Showgirls, keeping the mix of sleaze and spectacle alive. But for all its cultural firepower, Flashdance didn't become a franchise. Paramount once considered a sequel. Auditions were even held, but it never happened. Sonny Johnson, who played Alex's best friend Jeannie, tragically died of a brain aneurysm just a year after the film's release. And while the movie inspired generations of dancers, singers, and dreamers, the story of Alex Owens ended at the conservatory steps, with Nick and her dog Grunt waiting outside. Even so, Flashdance lives on. Whether through Snoopy mimicking Alex's audition in Flash Beagle or Jennifer Lopez recreating scenes in her I'm Glad video, the film remains a fixture of pop culture. It proved that sometimes lightning strikes when you least expect it, on a script nobody wanted, with a director who didn't believe in it, and a star who didn't even dance. But maybe that's what makes Flashdance special. It's not about perfect form or flawless execution. It's about the feeling, the music, the risk, the sweat, the dream. Now it's time to hear from you. Did knowing that Jennifer Beals didn't perform most of the dancing change how you feel about Flashdance? Or do you think the movie's power lies in the fantasy it creates? Drop your thoughts below.